Mhm.
A smart person is not about cerebral, you did IQ test, thankful for most
Mhm.
of us. Like, yeah, like, that's not the point. The point is an emotional intelligence, which, on a job site, a good example would be, hey, you know that if you're trying to give instructions to one of the people under you, you're a direct report, that an attitude of humility, an attitude of teamwork, an attitude that's not condescending is powerful. It's important. But if your snide remarks or your condescending behavior starts coming across, that tone of voice, like, oh man, I'm bothered by you asking me, or you're annoying me, or
Mhm.
you don't even you're not even saying the person's stupid, but you're acting like, man, he's an idiot. Like, why,
Mhm.
like, this is an emotional failure. This is not an ideal team player.
Welcome to the Blueprint for Profit. Today we are honored to have Mikhail Gannage on the pod. Mikhail is the founder of Gannage Design and Construction, a firm specializing in high-end residential remodeling. Beyond his impressive track record of doubling revenue 3 times in the last 3 years, Mikhail is a true industry leader who is focused not just on building projects, but on building people. Today we're going to dive deep into the most critical challenge facing the trades, the skilled labor gap. We'll explore Mikhail's philosophy on developing what he calls the ideal team player to solve this crisis from within. And then finally, we'll discuss the harsh realities of scaling a construction business and what systems need to be in place to handle rapid growth without breaking stuff. So, Mikhail, it's fantastic to finally have you on the show. I've been really looking forward to this conversation all week, especially after hearing about your incredible work at Gannage Design and Construction. So, for our audience, can you briefly describe Gannage Construction and the type of high-end residential remodel work you focus on?
Yeah, we're Central Coast of California. We work from Creston, Templeton, Paso Robles, Morro Bay, Cayucas, Cambria, San Luis Obispo area, Tascadero, Paso. Just kind of a tight little area on the Central Coast of California. We do a lot of coastal work along the ocean. Just the demand for prime real estate is high, and so there's not a lot of new lot development. There's more of a reacquiring of lots that are prime and have a dwelling on them and need to be either modified or completely overhauled. So we spend most of our time doing that. It's a family-owned business. Family is definitely a core value for us, and so I actually have family employed here, as well as um, family groups that have definitely worked with me. Some of my trade partners are family-run businesses, and I've found a lot of value in there. It's not necessarily a guarantee, I can promise you that. I've had some that are not so great that we've sent along their way, but uh, that's been really nice. Um, we've definitely focused in on the residential world and stayed away from commercial work. Um, what's drawn us to the high-end reality is the demand for quality over just wanting to get something cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Not interested in competing with people trying to get a lower price, more important in quality and um, cost consciousness rather than trying to get a cheap deal. So that's been uh, very effective and consistent with our core values. So matching up our clients to who we are has been really important. And so, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
been really enjoying it. I don't never know what the future holds, but we have been at it for, I mean, over 25 years. I've been at it for over 30. So, um, yeah, we
Wow,
love what we do.
that's awesome. So you mentioned that your company has doubled its revenue 3 times over the last 3 years, which is incredible growth. And with that kind of scaling comes challenges, and you specifically brought up a major one facing the entire industry, the skilled labor gap. Kids are leaving high school less prepared for life, which naturally impacts their readiness for a trade. From your perspective, having trained some of these young people, what do you think is the core reason for this decline in basic life skills and the lack of interest in high skilled trades?
Well, there's two key questions there. First of all, the lack of interest is what fed the problem in the beginning. And that lack of interest was Um, we have differing opinions, but my observation is some of the things that I reflect on back when I was in high school, and you'd walk through your guidance counselor's office, and they had a poster up there promoting college entrance, and I'm not at all discouraging that. but it painted a disparaging view of anyone who didn't go off to a four-year university as someone who was not going. It literally was a black and white of a guy who was barely able to survive, looked like he looked very sad, he didn't have much in life, and then right next to that was a color picture of a guy with a really nice car and a beautiful girl, and he looked dressed really nice, and one was the guy of going to college, and the other guy didn't bother to go to college, and that kind of mindset and attitude has been promoted for quite a long time, and granted, there are some valid reasons for it. There has been some decline in the lack of mutual respect for themselves as tradesmen, and that didn't help, but the fact of the matter is we're heading into a climate and season where that void is all too obvious in the trades, and the need for highly skilled labor is increasing. Our technology has grown. Just swinging a hammer is not adequate. You're going to learn a lot more technological skills as you work through the trades. So having aptitude and intelligence is a requirement. Significant amount of training on site, in different materials, classroom involvement is going to be important. And so the misunderstanding that um, happy, healthy, wealthy individuals who are in the trades doesn't exist. And so that's obviously not true. And yet that had been encouraged for at least a generation or two. And so now we're bearing the fruit of that failure. And we're trying to re-educate, while at the same time take some of the young people who have entered the trades and they've entered it under the misnomer that that's all they got left in life. Oh well, I didn't get a college education. Oh, woe is me, and so helping them to recognize that no, that's not the case. Not only are you going to have to work hard and function as a professional, but there is an incredible future for you in the trades. Um, and so seeing that be returned is part of our goal. You ask, well, how do we fill the gap? And first informating, helping people understand the difference, help them understand what's missing, and then looking to bring hope to some of these young people who are disenfranchised or disillusioned as they discover their what they thought they'd get if they went off to college isn't. I'm actually dealing with a number of actually college graduates are now coming full circle, and now they're ending up in the trades, discovering that their degree did not give them what they wanted in whatever that may be, happiness, fulfillment in a career, and in many cases, even financially, they're finding themselves not getting the money that they were expecting, and yet here in a short period of time, getting trained in trades and applying their same intellectual abilities and skills to what are becoming increasingly demanding in the trades. They're seeing the fruit of that work in control over their lives and financial freedom. So I'm excited to be participating and helping to educate some of those young people.
Mhm.
We're really a small operation, and so we really don't have the deep pockets of some of other organizations around the country that honestly I'm picking up ideas from them, some larger contractors who I've known through mastermind groups that are creating educational models for, in particular, subtrades. Not necessarily for the general, but like pick on plumber or HVAC, and they're internally training, and this is above and beyond the typical trade school, which those are great. And in some parts of the country, they exist, and I strongly encourage that. In our particular area, we're hundreds of miles from any trade school, and yeah, as what's also difficult is in the virtual world, and there's plenty of markets. Don't get me wrong. There's plenty of markets that are teaching online education for construction, and there's value, but it falls short significantly because it's a huge part of what has to be learned here has to be done with your hands on. You got to see it, you got to be involved with it. And so filling in the gap with what we're doing is trying to create programs that help take these young people who are coming without the educational background, without good decision-making mechanisms. Sometimes they're coming even dysfunctionally because it's rippling beyond the classroom. It's going back to a family structure that's not prepared them with good executive function skills. So we're trying to help them learn, those basic skills that'll help them even be able to learn what they need in the trade. So um, that's what we've been doing.
Mhm. So, on our last call, you brought up the powerful concept that nothing lives in a vacuum
Hmm.
and talked about the wisdom embedded in the traditional apprenticeship model. For a high-end residential remodeler like you, can you adapt that core exchange of that old apprenticeship where you learn life skills alongside the trade and apply it successfully in today's modern construction business?
Absolutely. You absolutely can. You do have to be willing to think outside the box. If you're a contractor and you've followed a particular model in the past, whether you've been either in the commercial world and maybe you were trained by um, somebody who just handed you a hammer and said, "Okay, follow me around and do something." Or if you did have a more formal apprenticeship, I would hope that And again, unfortunately, California that lags in this. They do not have good apprenticeship programs. I know other states do have some good apprenticeship programs and can be followed, but where we're at, there isn't. So uh, I encourage grabbing some of that information, utilizing it in whatever state you're in to try to help. But I see a great deal of need for it where those of us who haven't had that kind of experience need to take our time and learn. But basically, presenting, I think it's worth finding those young people who show the aptitude and desire to learn and to grow, that the fruit of it is worth it. You can train up young people who are more capable and more loyal than what we're currently dealing with, because we do see a lot of transient behavior in the trades. People will come, go really quickly. I'm thankful to say that most of my employees that I have been with me for a long time. Um, we don't we talk in terms of not a year or 2, but, some of them 10 years and more who've been working with us, and, some of them have been trained up since they were coming right out of high school and honestly knew nothing, and they had a drive to work, and they knew they had needs, and they struggled. I've seen young people come to work with us who actually shouldn't have been given even a high school diploma. They were illiterate, and they lacked mathematic skills and couldn't even do fundamental arithmetic, and to train them in those executive functions, with budgeting skills, has all been a benefit to us. I mean, we think about it as an employer, like, you could have a great employee, but if he can't manage his money, you're gonna have a problem. You're gonna lose this guy. He could be very skilled, but he's out spending it, right? I mean, there's a reason to provide that kind of education to your people. In the trades, we deal with, how do we come up with good benefits? Benefit package for a small
Mhm.
hard. What do you do? Well, I say get creative. We like to use Ramsey's Financial Peace University. You can get going on what's called Smart Dollar, and that's a great program that we provide for our employees, where they get an educational training on how to manage their finances, and
Mhm.
they come away learning how to win and get out of debt and save money. And I don't care where you are in that chain, if as an employer you're doing that and you're helping your people get there, that is an intangible benefit that's coming full circle to you too, because you have financially at peace people. They're content. They understand what they're working with. They're not constantly spending every dollar they get. So strongly encourage thoughts about that to try to help motivate some of the young people uh, that aren't going to just be motivated by just throwing more money at them, which won't work either. So,
Mhm. Yeah, David Ramsey, he's got a lot of good information, and financing. He's a
yeah.
good person to look up to.
Yeah, and
I
I
loved
mean
your story about grabbing a shovel and jumping into a trench. It speaks volumes about setting the standard. And when
mm,
you're trying to attract and keep young talent, how much does that "nothing is beneath me" attitude from the CEO truly influence their commitment and performance on a job site?
I think it's real important. I have been in a place where I've worked on my business for a while, and I've had to learn, even at the top, that there's an appropriate time for you to make connection all the way at the bottom of your organization. And I don't say bottom because it's beneath. I say bottom because it's just positionally what's going on. And maybe it is in the trenches. And I think one of the most valuable lessons I learned is that um, no matter where you are, taking the time to actually connect with your entire organization. Uh, Obviously, those who are your direct reports are someone you're going to be hopefully meeting with on a weekly basis. But getting in the trenches and quite literally, sometimes I've shown up on job sites and I have no real obligation to that. position. I'm not working in that, but I want to see how things are working. I want to understand the impact, how the trades are working together, how my employees are working together. And if I don't like what I'm seeing, I'm the first guy who's down on my knees picking up trash, grabbing a broom, sweeping a floor. I see a young guy who somehow doesn't understand use a shovel in a trench, and he's going to hurt himself. I don't need that happening. I need someone to train him how to work the shovel. I'll jump down the trench myself and get dirty. I don't care. You need to understand that that's an important part. And when you set that example and you set that bar, you earn respect. Um, your people, they work for you with a different sense of devotion and attitude, and it'll ripple through your organization if that's what you choose to do. So, strongly encourage that kind of mindset.
Love that. It does ripple through the organization. That's awesome. It's clear that solving the labor gap is less about finding warm bodies and more about developing great people, which brings us to this framework, the ideal team player. You talked about three essential traits: hungry, humble, and smart. Could you walk us through what each of those looks like on a construction team? I'm particularly interested in how smart relates to emotional intelligence and how you define humble differently than
Mm,
just being meek.
well, I have to say leaders are readers. And so the reality is this entire concept, you want to read about it, I'd love to share with you. But the fact of the matter is, get the book, The Ideal Team Player by Pat Lencioni. Phenomenal author, great book, game changer for our organization and for many people who I've worked with, a lot of other business owners that I collaborate and understand with. They're going to share the same kind of mindset for you. But yeah, the ideal team player. I'll just give you my quick little summary, and Pat may
Mhm,
not agree, but we'll see if I get it right here. Is my little pop quiz here for myself. But an ideal team player, there are three legs to it. I like to picture it like three-legged stool, and with one leg missing, you're going down. And so these are three essential elements to an ideal team player. Even though you need all three, I'm going to consider the fact of being humble to be your foundation point, and that's just kind of a practical thing that we've observed. Without humility, it's really hard to work on the other two, and you're not born with these. You may have a propensity, or you may have parents who have guided you, or you've leaned towards one of these three. So even if you're an ideal team player, if you look at a Venn diagram and you kind of put yourself in the circle of the ideal team player, you may go, yeah, I'm an ideal team player, but you're all of us are going to lean one direction or another inside that and have areas to work on. So even an ideal team player, in fact, part of the definition of an ideal team player is he's hungry, which means he's constantly looking to grow and get better. So an ideal team player wants to be a better ideal team player. So that's
mhm,
that's our goal around here. But if you're not humble, and then you're not going to want to grow. And it's been put well before, but the fact of the matter is, your humility has nothing to do with thinking about yourself. Your humility means you're not thinking about yourself. Instead of thinking of yourself as, oh, look how awesome I am, or, oh, I'm such a poor person. That's not humble. That's just, you're just still thinking about yourself. Um, an ideal team player who's humble is one who says, hey, I'm really not even processing about me. I'm thinking about you. So what are your ideas? How can we work together? How can I help
mm,
you better? That makes an ideal team player, right?
mhm,
Whether or not I'm hungry, hungry just says, hey, do I have a burn? Do I have an appetite? And my dad used to call it the eye of the tiger. It's like we're straight
mhm,
out of Sylvester Stallone's movie. Rocky, it's like you got the eye of the tiger, and it's like, yeah, okay, I got the eye of the tiger. You got to burn for something different. Are you ready for more? Are you hungry? Do you want to learn more? Do you want to grow more? As an ideal team player, what does that mean? People come to you with ideas. You go, all right, let's check out your idea. All right, well, what do you think about this? Oh, let me think about that. That might work. Or you got a
mhm,
book to read. Oh, sure, I'll consume that book. You're hungry. You're gonna go for it. Give me some more,
mhm,
right? But as you asked about smart, hungry, humble, smart. Well, a smart person is not about cerebral. You did IQ test. Thankful for most
mhm,
of us. Like, that's not the point. The point is an emotional intelligence, which, on a job site, a good example would be, hey, you know that if you're trying to give instructions to one of the people under you, you're a direct report, that an attitude of humility, an attitude of teamwork, an attitude that's not condescending, is powerful. It's important. But if your snide remarks or your condescending behavior starts coming across, that tone of voice, like, oh man, I'm bothered by you asking me, or you're annoying me, or you know,
Mhm.
you don't even you're not even saying the person's stupid, but you're acting like, man, he's an idiot. Like, why,
Mhm.
like this is an emotional failure. This is not an ideal team player. Ideal team player is like, oh, you know what, man? I can tell he's struggling with this. I can see he's frustrated. I want to be a little bit more patient. Maybe I'm going to talk a little slower. Maybe I'm going to wait here. Hold on. He's just struggling. Let him eat on that for a little while, right? So recognizing that in one another, there's an interesting tie-in between humility and smart, because a humble person is all it's going to feed into their emotional intelligence, and they're going to, instead of thinking about themselves or something, like how could my approach to this person help them, right? If I'm, you know, I got the right kind of intelligence, I'm going to approach my superior with the right kind of attitude, saying, "Hey, listen, I'm struggling here. I need help." You're going to articulate it in a way that's not disrespectful or rude to your superior, right? It's considerate. There's a lot of emotional and physical consideration for one another. Well,
Mhm.
you know, one of our core values is service before self, and that core value comes through here when you see that my attitude is about you.
Mhm.
My desire is to solve the problem, to work together as a team. So here you can see that kind of intelligence creates an ideal team player. So with these three together, you can grow, you can rock, and honestly, we're not all perfect. We're growing. I think smart is probably the one area where we, at least I could sure use some help. You know, I struggle, and I tell you what, though, the tie-in is great because I have humbly come, hopefully, come to some of my team players, direct reports above me, and said, "Hey, please tell me when I'm stick my foot in my mouth. I need help. You know, like I really want to get it right. Please, please help me get there, because I want to be a member of the team that's not causing friction and disturbing the peace and how we're trying to work together."
Yeah.
So those are what I think are the key elements to making that work. And we're looking for those when we're looking for, let's say, back to the idea of, like, you got a young person coming out of high school. They've got executive function deals that they maybe they don't have the technical skills to be out in the trades. They maybe don't even know about work ethic, you know, but
Mhm.
we're start talking to them about being an ideal team player. We're gonna see the potential for it. Maybe they're a little off in some of those areas. We're gonna start training that. So an ideal team player says, it isn't just that we're an ideal team player. I'm continuing to grow as an ideal team player. I'm wanting to hire ideal team players, and I'm wanting to find my team players who maybe are a little weak in an area, but they're hungry. They want to grow, right? They want to get better, and so we're going to train them. We're going to teach them, and so uh, that's an ongoing process. It's not a one-time realization or evaluation, and it's
Mhm.
certainly not fatalistic where it's like, "Oh, shoot, I'm not very emotionally intelligent. I'm obviously not an ideal team player. Woe is me." No, no, no,
Right.
no. Like, that's if you're hungry for it, you're humble, you'll get there. Let's do it,
Mhm.
right? So,
Exactly. Yeah, I'm so glad that you recommended that book. That night, I actually went to Barnes& and Noble and got those 2 books, and I sped through it like you said I would, and it's awesome, and I love how they conducted their interviews. After each interview, they came to each other briefly and isolated what they knew that they had, and then they were able to focus more on the other traits, and it was awesome. Yeah, I love that book.
second that. That was a key point for me in the change our process is how we interview it, and actually having that touch point after each interview to go, all right, what were you picking up on, and what can I look further at? What might I have been missing when I was evaluating? And so now the next person's going to go in an interview and build on the platform of the previous interview. Interview where I think it's specifically trades, like, interview where and how you think is necessary to bring out either the strengths or the weakness of that player, whether they're going to be ideal, and draw it out, you know, go for coffee, ask them to show up, and don't show up in time, have them interact
Mhm.
with your office manager without you showing up, so that later you can ask your office manager, how did they treat you? You know, I mean, these little things that you can engineer on purpose to see what kind of a character this person is, right? You know, you show up at a job site and, oh, excuse me, I'm going to go to the bathroom. I want you guys talk over here and disappear, and then come back and then be able to ask that person that they interacted with, how did that go? Did they let
Mhm.
their guard down? Did they reveal something that they were holding back from me? Right?
Mhm.
Get creative.
Yeah. So you mentioned asking your employees to tell you if you're being too fast or harsh, essentially inviting them to coach the CEO. What is the practical business advantage of that vulnerability, and how does it change the dynamic of honesty and engagement within your team?
I think it is huge. I think it is a total misnomer and deception. I don't know where it rooted from. Maybe it's from ancient parenting or corporate America. But my authority is my authority. I am the CEO. I own this place. I don't need to act it. I don't need to behave it. It is real. I
Mhm.
do not need to what I really need to do is function in humility, and especially at the top, it is so challenging to be able to get real feedback. Another interesting thing that we do is we use Entree Leadership's Elite, which creates a place for each one of my employees to give feedback privately and in their own convenient time and on their phone or computer, and they can let me know how their week went. And I've used that space as a private space where they can give me feedback about how I'm doing with them. And many people are a little more comfortable in that space going, "Hey, it was a little hard this week because, that you did this and it was difficult for me and or I'm having a hard week because this happened in my life." And they weren't comfortable talking about it anywhere else, but knowing that it was going to me and we could share in that, it really helped. And I've had as soon as I've had people open up, I would say another encouragement, if people open up to you in any way, man, you jump on it in a positive way. Thank you. Wow. I just cannot believe you took the time to share that with me and help me. And honestly, as a CEO, I don't care if they are on point or not. You need their feedback. They could be totally off. I don't care. Receive it. Take it.
Mhm.
Find some nugget in it and give them all kinds of accolades for bothering. Do you know how scary it is to be employed by somebody? I mean, I'm used to being the boss for a long time, but like when you're employed by somebody and they can control your livelihood, that
Yeah.
is that is a bold and brave thing when your CEO asks you to do this and you do it, you actually give him some corrective criticism. Yeah,
Mhm.
you really want to applaud those people for doing it, and I honestly, I've seen incredible fruit in it. As I've done it, it's grown as I encourage them in it, they've grown confident. I've actually had, employees who've worked for me for quite a number of years who are encouraging and egging on the new ones going, "Hey, this is a different kind of boss. It's okay. Go ahead. Let him know. He wants to know. I know. He's a little different. Believe me, he'll appreciate it. You won't get fired for telling him something he needs to do better." And
Awesome.
it's
That's
really kind
awesome.
of fun culture to create, and it is.
Yeah.
It really is a culture thing. So it creates a culture of accountability. And we hear all this, but it actually does create a culture of accountability and true camaraderie and teamwork when they see that example of humility from the top down.
Mhm. So let's pivot back to your rapid growth, doubling revenue 3 times. You have a great warning. You break stuff when that happens. And that's a critical lesson for any contractor aiming to scale. And often the solution to fixing those broken systems lies in technology and automation. You pinpointed the jump from 2 million to 4 million as a major breaking point. So when a company hits that scaling wall, what are the top 1 or 2 internal systems that are most likely to fail? And how are you seeing forward-thinking contractors use AI or automation tools to proactively reinforce those weak points before they break?
That is a great point. So here's what I'm going to say. First of all, it's qualified as what I know. Okay, I residential construction company. That jump 2 to 4 was real for us. I've seen it real for a few others that I've worked with. It may not be real for you, but here's some of the things that occurred for us that were real. Your accounting, if you don't have it already set up where you're operating with um, something more than just your average bookkeeper, you're going to break your accounting. Your accounting is not, it's not adequate. Most of the time people think about it in the naivety, they think accounting, they think of their taxes, they think of a CPA. And frankly, that's true. but that's not enough. When you get into business, you end up actually having business accounting where you're going to have project accounting. And again, I always strongly encourage you as a contractor that your accounting is project by project. And most of you know that, but it shouldn't be done by the end of the year. It's accrual. Each project should it's treated as its own creature. Um, but I needed to be coached to learn that and understand that. And at the time, we had an excellent bookkeeper. She was phenomenal, loved her, and she brought us through a season. But it came to a point where her skills and her ability were limited, and she did not know the questions to ask. She didn't know the things I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know, and I say that a lot. But like I didn't know, so I needed someone to tell me. So finding out ahead of time, I would say, you know, getting somebody to come in and give you a strategic plan, helping facilitate that, get some coaching.
Mhm.
You know, I was really surprised. It was interesting. Again, I was at a master series program, getting coached by some incredible coaches who have coaches. I mean, guys who are multi-millionaires and billionaires who they themselves are considered at the top of the pecking order as far as success, and they have coaches. One
Mhm.
of the things you'll find that the top leaders and whatever, they are being coached by somebody. So don't try to do it alone. You don't
Mhm.
know. You haven't been there. If you haven't been there before, you don't know, and you're going to need coaching. And then often is when it comes to that strategic planning. So let's say, okay, we're going to go. We're planning to go from 2 to 4. What should I be looking for? I didn't
Mhm.
get that at that time, and I wish I'd had that specific targeting. Going, okay, what breaks? What is potentially going to break between there? If you don't have, and this seems redundant, but if you don't have your processes dialed in, any little nuance that's off only gets amplified. Think about it from 2 to 4, right? It will amplify any little thing that's not working well. So that's something to poke at. You know, if you're like, well, it's okay, we're making it work, but making it work won't work when you double and you double again. It won't.
Mhm.
It'll break in a fatal way, and you better be on it. Um,
Yeah.
so planning ahead, bringing in somebody who has been there and does know that, find a consultant, find at least some coaching to guide you through that planning.
Mhm.
Your handoffs, that's what I like to call it. The handoffs between different areas of your business will break if those aren't well documented and ironed out. Most of us builders have started off as just one guy, you know, and we got it all in our head and we're wearing all the hats. So there wasn't really a handoff. You know, you
Mhm.
had all the hats, so you weren't handing off between the hats. But what happens is when you separate the hat out and you hand accounting to one person and you hand project management over here and you hand, you know, selection management or design management and you handle field operations and you start breaking this up, the breakdown is the handoff between those roles that used to just abide in you or 2 people or 3 people. But then when you're 8, 9, and 10, 15, and 20 people, and those aren't well clarified exactly who's accountable to who and for what, and who gets a second set of eyes on what, that's where you start breaking down. Errors start happening, cost overruns start happening. So those are
Mhm.
my thoughts.
So you highly recommend coaching and systems to navigate this growth. How do external integrated systems like the HubSpot partnership you have or other AI-driven platforms fit into that solution? Do they provide the necessary structure to keep the sales and acquisition process running smoothly enough to handle that rapid, high volume growth and potentially even help with the labor shortage?
I recommend that you have some additional help, and sometimes the transition help is the key. You're like, "How do I
Mhm.
leap? I don't need a full-time," whatever that is, right? I know that one.
Mhm.
Say, I can't afford it, or I don't need it yet." Got it. So, there's a couple solutions. If you're talking about the design end, drafting, things like that, go to Upworks, places like that where you can get, fractional help. You know, you can outsource that. That's a good option. We did some branding work that way. We did some marketing work that way until we got to a point where we hired Height Digital, and they took care of all of our digital marketing. That was a great move, and you can transition there. Um, Another one is bringing in a service provider like Belay, who can provide fractional administrative assistance. So that's powerful. We still actually have a couple of them. I love it. I've got one. My COO has one, and so we both have executive assistants that help us get that work done. And they could start out as like 10 hours a week that they're helping you. And you may not realize, you're like, how am I supposed to do that? But once you start handing off those details, especially coming from the leadership side, now you're able to really start focusing on what you need to, which is helping you back away and get working on the business. Otherwise, this thing is driving you. I mean, the cart's pushing the horse,
Mhm.
not the other way around. So you got to get this thing moving in the right way, in the right direction. And getting some of these things off your plate, as hard as it is going to be key.
Mhm. For sure. So, Mikhail, you've seen incredible growth, but what keeps you up at night when you're thinking about sustaining that? What's the biggest personal challenge you face in managing this rapid expansion?
Well, let's get real. If you're in your own business for a while, you feel alone. Being alone is pretty. It's a struggle. Like, hey, am I a complete failure here? I mean, I don't care. I mean, sure, we've doubled. You still go like, man, what have I done? I completely botched this. Everybody's dependent on me, and that's real. So for me, to be honest with you, I take that to the Lord, and I say, Father, I'm struggling. I need help. I know I can't do this without you. I need guidance. And I just spend a lot of time in prayer. I get into God's word. I say, I just need that. I need that from you. Show me how I can do it, and then trust him for that, and seek others that who are of like mind. There are others that are like you that are struggling. There are multiple groups out there. I mean, I know that the Ramsey organization has some leadership groups there that are helpful. I was a part of Construction Leading Edge. They're a good organization as well. There are groups out there that can help bring you some accountability and just some camaraderie in this reality. Going, hey, am I the only one struggling with this? Nah, probably not.
Mhm.
That's one thing I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you. You think that what you're struggling with is unique. I got news for you. It's not unique. What you're going through is not unique, and it's important to know that, and to have others come alongside you, encourage you. Um, that's really powerful. Okay, but there'll be no substitute for just laying it out before the Lord and saying, Lord, I need your help. So that's what works for me.
Mhm. Mikhail, if a contractor listening today could only take one action to improve their business this week, what would you advise them to focus on?
That's tough. It really does depend on where they're at today. And I'll admit that, I can't speak into when I don't know where you're actually at, because I
Mhm.
could give you advice, but it's not actually on point for your current systemic issue. And I realize that. But so for me, some of the things that come to top of the mind is making time to work on your business by starting by reading some books. There's books that will guide you. That's
Mhm.
the cheapest way for you to get some of the coaching and guidance you need. Get involved in some group or organization, even if it's just listening to some podcasts that are guided and directed conversations about how to get it right. Um, that's going to help. And I just honestly don't know how a single businessman out there operates without at least starting with a bookkeeper. So if it's just you and your wife are trying to crunch all these numbers together, that doesn't work. You're not going to grow that way. You're going to have to recognize you're going to have to bring someone else in. So bring someone in to help you with the numbers. That's, 95% of us, that's exactly where we need to start right there. Someone to help work those numbers. And that's scary because you know how much of a mess your numbers are right now. And handing all that off and explaining it is just overwhelming. It's a nightmare to you, and I get it. But so is going out of business. So is going broke. So bring in the help while you can.
Thank you, Mikhail. Your insights on developing the ideal team player and proactively managing growth were extremely insightful.
Yeah,
Thank you
well,
for sharing the blueprint for not just scaling revenue, but for building a sustainable, loyal team. And to all of our listeners, remember to apply those lessons on being hungry, humble, and smart this week. We'll catch you next time on the Blueprint for Profit.
thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate your time.
thank you.